Good morning and welcome to our video on our large format balancing valve, patent pending balancing valve system here. In this case, we've got a very large round die that we're going to take and be punching with. Model number is RD-C-9000. It's a 9-inch die. And basically you'll get the die set and you'll get a couple of boxes in this kit, with the first box being the balancing valve assembly. And to connect up this system, you're going to take your supply line from your hydraulic power source, be it a Enerpac system or whatever, and we do supply the male fitting for that to go on your hydraulic power source. And you simply slide it into the balancing valve system here and thread on the quick coupling. And in the second case that comes with the system, you're going to have two pulling cylinders. And coming out of the backside of the balance valve system, you have two hydraulic lines. And we also include a wrench, and those are your pulling bolts, are also in that particular box. And the cylinder is real simple. You just hook each line up to a cylinder. And that basically makes your hydraulic pulling system ready at this point. Okay, then we basically have to assemble up the die set, and this will be using both valve or both cylinders. Each cylinder has 2 bolts in it, so you have a total of 4 bolts. And we pre-drill the panel for that, and you can just take the punch part of that and slap over your opening and use it to take and lay out your holes. And we find the easiest way is to get the bolts in the punch side of the die through the panel first. And if you do have a couple of people, it always makes the job a little bit easier, but it is manageable by one person. And we slide the cup side or base side over it, and now that whole assembly will stay there pretty well for you while we assemble the cylinders to the pulling studs. So there's a bolt pattern in the base of each cylinder, and you basically just hold it up there, and you can get them bolts started in that cylinder. And then we do include a little hex key. These don't have to be wrenched up tight. You just got to take them up to the point where that you know, they have bottomed out. There's the first cylinder, and we repeat the same process with the second cylinder. I'm doing this handheld just so you can get a better view of everything. We kind of orbit around the assembly as we're taking and fitting it up. And at that point, we are ready to punch. And now, of course, we're all assembled up, ready to take and produce our punching operation here. So the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure your 2 valves on your balancing valve are open, you know, at least a quarter turn, half turn, something like that. And what this does is it allows even pressure to be advanced on both cylinders, without any regard to load. So it'll load up the first cylinder and then the slop will come out of the second cylinder. We are driving this with a pneumatic hydraulic pump that is on the floor here. It has a foot valve on it. So Frank, if you want to just bring it up, and what we're going to do is we don't want to start punching the hole, we just want all the slop out of everything. And you'll be able to see that as the hoses tighten up a little bit. And once we're at that point, the cylinders are all evenly loaded, and we're going to reach over now and close both valves on the balancing valve. And what that does, it puts the cylinders in a parallel drive mode, that they both go the same distance at the same time. And that's really the secret of stabilizing these large format dies, to keep them from rocking. And as you pull this too, especially if you have some assistance, it doesn't hurt if somebody else is around there to help catch this assembly as it comes out, because it is rather heavy. And then all you do is continue to drive your hydraulics. And one thing to note there is there's valleys in the die, and that's the little snaps you hear. And you heard them snap fairly continuously, pop, pop, pop. And the reason they did do that is because that die was being pulled so evenly that it stayed parallel. The cup and the punch stayed very parallel with it. It's a very unique system, and like I said earlier, our valving on this is patent pending. Okay, we'll go through the process now of recovering after we're done punching. And first thing we want to do is relieve our hydraulic pressure, and we just do that on the foot pedal. Plus we're going to open our balancing valves, so that allows everything to return to the beginning state, and the cylinders will retract and take the pressure off of the die set, and you'll be in a position now where you simply take and start removing the bolts. And since the drive assembly pulls so square, it's a lot friendlier to the pull bolts. There's less stress on them angularly, so therefore they usually will take and last a lot longer than in a standard single cylinder pulling situation. If you tried to pull this die set with a single stud down through the middle, the rocking tendency of it tends to let the die set pull at an angle through there, and as you pull on that angle, the other side you haven't cut, the load factor actually goes way up on that. So you wind up using a lot more pressure to try and get the job done than you would if you had the parallel drive ability with it. You may need a light dead blow hammer in some cases to take and remove the bolts. So you just take a dead blow and just tap them just slightly, and out they'll come. There's interference between the slug and the off the top. Now you have a slug in the bottom of your unit. A lot of times they'll come out and they'll just fall out, but if they don't, we have a rolling head bar that can be used in a number of ways to take and help relieve the slug. And basically you get one edge started like that and it won't be long. This was 16 gauge material that we punched with this. you can pretty much punch anything from 16 up through a 10 gauge with this. With the thicker the slug, of course, the more you're going to have to wrestle a little bit about getting it out of the cup. But there's the 9-inch round balancing valve driven knockout system from Zetec.